mortgages area and in the retail operations.
Why did you say that you'd worked at the Bank of England for a decade when in fact it was, well, it wasn't even 6 years, it was 5? I mean, that's exaggeration, isn't it?
Well, already since we came to office, the Bank of England have cut interest rates twice. Inflation is now at 2.5%, so a far cry from the 11% or so that the Conservatives delivered. And wages are rising at twice the rate of inflation. I know, though, that the cost of living crisis paid a heavy toll. People have paid a heavy toll for that over recent years, which is why yesterday I announced a number of measures to go further and faster to kickstart economic growth, because in the end, that is what makes working people better off and puts more money in their pockets. That is what I am determined to deliver as Chancellor of the Exchequer.
This is really tough, and I do get that it's tough. It's not easy, and no Prime Minister wants to take a decision like this. But the winter fuel payments are now to be targeted. They were untargeted before, and I think everybody thought that wasn't a particularly good system, so it needed to be targeted.
Rachel Reeves, the Labour Party's Chancellor, was subjected to a brutal interview by Richard Madeley and Kate Garraway, resulting in her credibility being shattered live on air. Throughout the interview, Reeves struggled to defend her economic policies and track record, and her credibility was exposed as nothing more than hollow promises and exaggerated claims. One of the key moments that undermined her position was the revelation that she had inflated her experience at the Bank of England. While Reeves had claimed to have worked there for a decade, the truth was far different. In reality, she had only worked there for 5 years, and one of those years was spent studying for a master's degree at the London School of Economics. Even more damaging was the revelation that she had overstated her role at Halifax Bank of Scotland. Instead of working as an economist, she had been in a support department, handling administrative tasks. This revelation earned her the unflattering nickname Rachel from Accounts among her colleagues. Madeley and Garraway were quick to point out these discrepancies, emphasising that her resume seemed to be padded to make her appear more qualified for the position she currently holds. Reeves's handling of the issue of inflation was particularly problematic. She claimed that inflation had dropped significantly under her watch, but her critics pointed out that the country was still grappling with rising costs of living, particularly for the most vulnerable. The Labour Party had been quick to tout its economic policies as a solution to the country's woes. But
Rachel Reeves has killed the economy, and now he's talking about growth and boosterism. I mean, she killed the economy in 3 ways. She talked the country down for 6 months, but the fear have got into every business person in the UK and anybody thinking of moving here. She then whacked massive tax increases on business of £25 billion a year and expects business to just suck it up. And coming down the track, there are huge amount of red tape for businesses in the shape, particularly of the Employment Rights Bill, which will wrap business up in red tape, will hit hiring, reduce the number of jobs, and reduce the level of pay.
Decades to complete long after the current government has moved on. The hosts highlighted that the airport expansion, while important in the long term, did nothing to address the immediate challenges facing the country. With the cost of living crisis continuing to affect millions of people, it seemed to many that the government was more focused on vanity projects than on solving the issues at hand. Reeves tried to deflect criticism by repeatedly emphasising her commitment to long-term projects that would drive economic growth. But her critics were quick to dismiss these as empty promises. The reality, they argued, was that the country was struggling with the consequences of poor economic decisions made under her watch. The failure to address pressing issues like inflation and the cost of living was a direct result of the government's focus on projects like the Heathrow runway, which would provide little immediate relief to the British people. The final blow came when Madeley pointed out that even the CEO of Ryanair had publicly rejected the government's plan for Heathrow expansion, saying that it would not be completed until decades into the future. This was a direct challenge to Reeves's narrative that the project was a vital part of the government's growth strategy. Once again, Reeves was unable to provide a convincing response, and her position continued to crumble under scrutiny. The interview concluded with Reeves struggling to defend her position, leaving her looking more and more like a figurehead than a competent leader. The Labour Party, it seemed, was increasingly disconnected from the reality of the British public's struggles, and Reeves's refusal to address the real issues facing the country only added to the growing frustration. Her repeated promises of growth and economic recovery rang hollow in the face of the ongoing cost of living crisis, and many began to wonder if her tenure as Chancellor was built on nothing more than empty rhetoric and unfulfilled promises. In the end, Rachel Reeves's performance in the interview only reinforced the perception that she is out of her depth as Chancellor. The UK is facing some of the most difficult economic challenges in recent history, and her inability to offer concrete solutions to those problems has left many questioning whether she is truly capable of leading the country out of this crisis. With the public's patience wearing thin, it remains to be seen whether Labour can recover from this disastrous interview and rebuild its credibility on economic issues. However, based on Reeves's performance, it seems highly unlikely that any immediate progress will be made.